Start.
Oh,
Yeah.
we are live.
Yay.
Hi.
Hey there.
Hey. So we'll give a second for people to start actually getting notified that we're live.
Yeah. Do we want to put a banner up?
Oh, yeah.
Things that I get to remind of.
Here. Most people that drop in are going to know the rest of us. Oh,
Yeah.
somebody's already commenting.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Hi,
Bateman's
Susan.
Hello,
here.
Susan.
Hey there.
Uli.
And Uli.
Hey, Yuli.
Dave does look different.
Yes, he does.
Well, his hair's been progressively getting shorter.
Yeah. And
Dave
your mom's
2.0.
on.
Yeah.
And-
So tonight we have Aaron H Goldberg joining us, who's written 4 or 5 Disney books.
Samantha's on From Magic Kingdom.
That's
That's dedication.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
That is
jealous.
dedication.
Yeah.
She's just waiting for happily ever after, I think is what it is.
Which means we're going to lose her in about 14 minutes.
Right.
But yeah, Aaron has written several books about Disney, and he's going to kind of help us through buying the property and why it's located here and some construction and early days kind of stuff as we kick off a 10-day countdown to the 50th.
Wow.
I know. Now it's getting real.
It really is.
Yeah.
And Ryder is very happy about it.
Oh, you just heard him, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, if Michael comes in on mute, I'll drop out for a minute.
Oh, no.
So-
Amanda's grading papers. Samantha's watching fireworks.
Yeah.
I'd rather be Samantha than Amanda.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Uli, if
Okay.
you like the history of Disney, you should look into Aaron's other books as well. But I listened to Buying Disney this week, and it was so interesting. And
Yeah, it really
I
was.
can't wait to listen to more. So
Thank you.
listen. I say listen because I'm driving
Hey.
around town from patient to patient. So
Listen, I know a lot of folks, can't get into the books. They do the Audible, whatever. I'm the other way around, but whatever works. Yeah.
yeah.
I tend to zone out
Yeah.
and not pay attention, and then, I end up lost or, who knows where.
Oh, I listened to the same chapter a couple of times every once in a
I
while.
have to go back. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was doing that last week. I was like, wait a minute, wait. I got really confused. So I had to go back.
I get lost in my own thoughts, and boom.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Yeah.
Well, in the narrator, her voice, I kind of forget where I'm at. So
There it is. Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put on, Mike.
She does very well.
Sure.
Yeah. I always thought she sort of had like the voice when you would call Disney. Like she sort of has that soft kind of. That's what I know. As soon as I heard listen to her for like 15 seconds, I'm like, done. She's it. She's got it. Sounds like I just called Disney. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
this one's for you too, Tom.
Yeah, and she actually has a nice excitement on the really cool things, like when she's explaining the, really intricate, and you're like, oh wow, that's really cool. You can tell she has that voice, like it is really cool, and I'm trying to make it sound really cool.
Yeah, she gives it a good little punch there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody
Kinda
was
off topic,
shirtless.
but where did you find her?
So it's a weird, there's like a weird, not even weird, but there's this almost like a marketplace where if you want to produce an audio book, you could basically upload like a sample of the book, and people will take that sample, record it, read it in their voice and send it, and you just listen to all these people. It's almost like, I don't want to say it's like an auction, but it's it's open for anyone to bid and put their spin on it. So I literally listened to like 5 or 6 of them, and she was probably like the 6th or 7th one. I heard it and I was like, done, that's it. And
She
did all my books. Every single book is, I don't even bother. I just say, you want to do another one? She says, yep. I said, there we go, here's the copy. Yeah.
Right.
Good.
She's actually in she's in Kansas, actually, is where she's from. She lives. Yeah.
So Uli, just to let you know, these are the 50th anniversary. These are one of the 3 versions of 50th anniversary ears. They're the Loungefly. I may have gone to Magic Kingdom yesterday and picked them up. along with a few other things.
So, Aaron, I've got it running on the bottom here. I put your Twitter handle
Thank you.
and your website. Is that the best place to find you? I guess.
Yeah, I do. Twitter and Instagram are the same handle. I'm like Instagram challenged. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm more versed at Twitter.
Yeah.
I play.
Scott's getting better at Instagram.
Yeah,
I don't know that I'm getting better at it. I'm just using it more.
Yeah, I do my post there, and that's kind of it for the day. Yeah.
All right.
So I guess we should probably get going on this.
Let's go on the topic. So, Aaron, your book is about the purchasing of the land, and what would we've a lot of us know the story, but tell us about why Walt wanted to build another project. What happened out in California?
I think at its simplest form, it is, well, I think there's a couple things at play. He was always somebody who was looking for the next project, the next big thing. Super creative, obviously, we know, super brilliant. And I think what it came down to was he was, what became Disneyland in his eyes was imperfect. He made mistakes. And he sort of wanted to right the wrongs or correct the mistakes that basically he was the only one who saw these mistakes. We see Disneyland, it's wonderful. I mean, what's bad about it? I mean, the whole, it was the original and everybody wants to go there, and they did for a lot of years. But what happened was he didn't have enough money to buy enough land. So basically what popped up on the outskirts and around his park, made him nuts. It made him furious that the outside world was seeping into, his creative world. So basically, he saw these imperfections and couldn't get away from it, and decided that, we sort of have to do this again, but probably on a grander scale. Mm-hmm. And the other little tidbit was most of the, I forget what the exact number was, but 90% of the folks who visited Disneyland came from, it was a regional park. They came from, California, Nevada, Arizona. Nobody was really, it was, like the Mississippi River was like the dividing line. So he really wanted to capture the rest of the country, the East Coast, and he wanted an opportunity to make things right, and get the park exactly how he wanted it. And then as time went on, things sort of evolved into what he would, present to us in the Epcot video.
Michael dropped in again.
Yes.
So, and I apologize. My dog was barking there too.
No, it's okay. Yeah, you're gonna end up hearing mine on it too, so it's okay.
Yeah. Dogs are dogs.
We got kids and dogs, so
yep. And I've got one trying to say hi right now too. So yeah, he's just quieter.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
So, I guess the next step is, we know he looked kind of all around the country. Mm-hmm. But he ended up in Orlando.
Yes.
So kind of, the
how did
30,000 foot view, literally, of that.
He looked, there was an opportunity in St. Louis. There was an opportunity in Niagara Falls. There was an opportunity at what's now the Meadowlands outside of New York City, DC. There were people throwing opportunities at him left and right. There was actually an opportunity down in West Palm Beach in South Florida. That were opportunities that came his way that they just weren't right for a litany of reasons. Primarily, everything outside of Florida was related to weather. Where
can you imagine Niagara Falls? That's
right. Yeah, in the winter.
Yeah, right. It's open half a year.
Yeah, and then there was the toss around of, okay, well, we can enclose it and put it under a roof, but again, that cost effective, and
I'm still waiting for that at Disney.
I hear, because those were early news articles where it's going to be under a roof and it's air conditioned and everything. Yeah. But they obviously narrowed down the list to their data told them Central Florida. There was people pushing for Daytona, and he did not want to be near the water. He didn't want to compete with the beach. He really wanted to be in the central part of the state. Great highways, and it does.
Is this the point where where we should hear it from him, directly from him?
Yeah.
All right, let's hear it directly from Walt.
Welcome to a little bit of Florida here in California. This is where the early planning is taking place for our so-called Disney World project. Now, the purpose of this film is to bring you up to date about some of the plans for Disney World. But before I go into any of the details, I want to say just a word about the site of our Florida project. As you can see on this map, we have a perfect location in Florida, almost in the very center of the state. In fact, we selected this site because it's so easy for tourists and Florida residents to get here by automobile. Now, in larger scale on this map, our Florida land is located partly in Orange County and Osceola County, between the cities of Orlando and Kissimmee. And the important thing is that the Disney World is located just a few miles from the crossing point of Interstate 4 and Sunshine State Parkway, Florida's major highways carrying motors east and west and north and south to the center of the state. The sketches and plans you will see today are simply a starting point, our first overall thinking about Disney World. Everything in this room may change time and time again as we move ahead. But the basic philosophy of what we're planning for Disney World is going to remain very much as it is right now. We know what our goals are. We know what we hope to accomplish. And believe me, it's the most exciting and challenging assignment we've ever tackled at Walt Disney Productions.
Wow. So he makes it sound so easy how we got this land, but it wasn't so easy. It wasn't so easy, was it?
No, it was not. It certainly was not easy. And it's interesting to, watch this now and reflect back and what came to be, what didn't come to be, it's just pretty remarkable. Mm-hmm. I mean, to buy almost 30,000 acres and not have anybody know it's you is quite a feat unto itself.
Yeah.
Which obviously takes a lot of privacy and covert operations, and basically the Disney company reached out to their lawyers. Walt and Roy reached out to their lawyers in New York City and said, we want to put something together down in Florida. We want to buy some land. We don't want anybody to know it's us for a variety of reasons. Primarily, as soon as everybody finds out it's Disney, exactly, goes right through the roof, which is what happened outside of Disneyland. I mean, by the time Disneyland was a success, they couldn't buy any more land because everybody bought it up, and that was that. So the attorneys in New York City put them in touch with a former CIA agent down in Florida. She was in Miami. He was one of the early members of then I believe it was the OSS is what it was called. Became the CIA, and he, at the time of basically buying the land for Disney, he was basically funding the Bay of Pigs. Like, he was trying to topple Cuba and some other South American countries, and doing crazy things that obviously you can't Google somebody in 1962 or 63 to say, oh, let's see what he's up to. What else? Let's see what kind of character this guy is. So this Paul Hellawell was an attorney, and he was the CIA operative. He basically takes up the charge along with an attorney from Disney, and they basically set out to purchase land throughout Central Florida to what eventually becomes Walt Disney World. But it wasn't so easy. No. There were, a slew of issues. I venture to say that Paul Hellawell, at the time, his backstory was he would use opium to get information. Back in World War II, he actually ran a bank and an insurance company out of Miami that the CIA used as a front to run guns around the world, run money around the world. He was like in charge of all. It's a crazy story. I mean, just Paul Hellawell by itself, he was always in like the society pages in Miami. He was like a notable guy. So without his help, I don't think Walt Disney World is specifically where it is. He basically gets the deals done of the major parcels of land that the company wanted to buy. they would run into problems here and there with, one parcel was about 12,000 acres. They had problems with obtaining the mineral rights.
That was crazy. When I heard
surface
about
rights,
that was so interesting that you could buy the land, but not the ground underneath.
Yeah.
So somebody else could come right under you and
it blew my mind
Yeah.
that land ownership was under, basically surface rights and underground. And that was owned by Tufts University.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Hellwell basically knew somebody who knew somebody, and they sit down and negotiate, and they end up getting the rights from Tufts University for like $16,000.
Yeah.
And the reason that was so important was because without those rights, you could build on that land. So the Demptree family owned the major parcel land, which Epcot and Walt Disney and Magic Kingdom are on, and they were home builders. So they wanted to build homes, and after they purchased the land, they realized they don't own the rights to what's underneath it. So whoever owned those mineral rights could go in there and mine for oil, phosphorus, whatever they want. They could literally blow those houses up, knock them down, and try and get it into the ground. And I was totally fascinated by this, and most people are. And I actually Googled it, and I think even down like in Tampa, there was something not too long ago going on within the past 5 or 7 years that a builder built a subdivision and held the rights, the mineral rights, and they wanted to go in there and prospect for oil or something. And the homeowner's like, "Wait, what's going on here?" And it was actually, last I looked a couple of years ago, it was still in the court system.
Wow.
Which is, crazy.
Yeah,
So,
shocking in today's day and age. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul Hellwell makes, basically whatever obstacle, gets in their way to purchase all the land that becomes Walt Disney World. He basically knocks out any problems. There was another story about a parcel of land that eventually Disney was able to buy, but it was owned by a state senator. So if you are familiar with driving around, you'll see Earl O. Bronson Memorial Highway. Well, Earl O. Bronson owned that land, and the federal government was going to take it via eminent domain. They were, I think, $50 an acre or something like that, and he didn't want to sell to them. And this was a key piece for Disney to have. So, the man about town made some phone calls and got the government to, not move in and take the property, and ended up selling the property to Disney for double the price, for about $105 an acre, which, it all basically becomes a part of the Reedy Creek section.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was part of it, that
Crazy.
you're going to get, you'll get tax dollars from us, and you're not going to get it with the federal government holding it.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
The piece that always fascinated me was Bonnet Creek. You couldn't get Bonnet Creek, huh?
Yeah.
They couldn't get that piece.
No,
That's crazy.
It's like its own little island, and they tried. And Bonnet Creek, that section, I think was purchased only like a year or two before Disney started collecting the land in that area. And the owners were, I don't remember, it was China or somewhere in Asia, and they just speculated that the land was not too far from the Space Coast, not too far from a highway, so there could be some warehousing or some kind of light industrial, and they held on to the land, and it took Disney a while to track them down, and once they actually did track them down, they had no interest in selling. And then eventually, obviously, as we know, the 2000s hit, and eventually, the land actually became, the
hotels,
the luxury hotels, and
Right.
But it's crazy to think that's, three sides of that prop. One side's I-4, and the other three is surrounded by Disney.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So where else?
We want to look at some construction.
Okay. Well, what were the there were tracts of land here that you guys talked about?
Yes. Okay, so this I always think is pretty interesting. So the big, like tens of thousands of acres in the early 1900s were up for sale, and it was called Munger Farms. So these ads were placed in, I think this ad's from 1911 or 1912. So these were running in the back of magazines and newspapers across the country, and you could buy an acre of 5 acres of land here for $5 cash, and $5 per month gets a 5-acre farm. And these were sold, they were sold out of magazines. People bought them all over the country. They never saw the land often. Oftentimes the land wasn't even usable. It would be in the middle of a swamp. And Disney basically ends up buying they need a lot of these random. They used to call them outs. So these were the Munger Farm parcels that were either adjacent to property they were buying, within a piece of property they were buying, or they just needed to secure to accumulate some land as a buffer. So they actually had to go around the country and track down the owners of these Munger Farm parcels. Some of them were 5 acres, some of them were 20. So they basically they would call. If their call was unsuccessful, they would send letters. If that was unsuccessful, they would go in person, and they would try and scoop up all this land so that somebody didn't have. So they didn't have basically another Bonnet Creek. So in the middle of in the middle of what could be the land for the Magic Kingdom, that somebody a holdout could have had 10 acres there, and they needed to get that. Yeah. So it's crazy that you could buy that land, out of the back of a magazine, and eventually, it became Walt Disney World.
I had a question about that because I was listening, and some of the people in their negotiations got lifetime passes and things, but I didn't understand. I thought it was a secret who was buying it. So was that
some of these things were after.
Okay.
So there were holdouts.
They had the options or things, and okay.
They weren't even an option. Some of those parcels, and there were still quite a few that after it was announced, there were still people who held out, and then Disney had to pay 3 or 4 times what they were willing to pay, or they took the negotiation of one woman said she wasn't going to sell, and then finally she's like, well, my son wants to go to college, so yeah, we're gonna sell, and I'm gonna put him through college, and so some of those were after the fact, and they were actually going on through the late 60s.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So then here's the map of.
This shows, the Munger stuff. So each one of those little boxes would have been for sale.
But the problem, the land wasn't actually a box, right?
Yeah.
No, the land wasn't a box. Nothing's a box, obviously. And Earth, it's, kind of, maybe, I don't even know if it would be trapezoid. I don't know what it would be, but so these were all these, basically somebody took a ruler or a slide rule or whatever and made all these boxes, and you could buy, box, 20 to 25, and that would be yours. And you could see that, 70% of Walt Disney World, basically the land was underwater a good chunk of the year. So you could see that most, and that's a big chunk of the land here on this diagram, it would have been underwater. It would have been swampland. I mean, nobody knew. They just, it's like the pie in the eye, the pie in the sky dreams of, oh, we're going to, we bought some land in Florida and one day we're going to retire there. And little did they know it was, it was basically swamp. Yeah. Right.
I always thought that was just one of those silly stories.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Buying land sight unseen out of the back of a magazine like it's X-ray goggles or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, and the firsthand stories of the woman, we tell a story of a woman who, her husband, I guess, with no uncertain, basically was kind of like a deadbeat. Couldn't accumulate any money, and she was getting nervous, and so she would skimp on groceries and save her money every week, and eventually, without him knowing, bought a parcel of, this Munger Farms, and was going to go down there eventually and live. And it just obviously didn't happen. But yeah.
It was very interesting to learn that Walt's family had ties to the area.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say there's nothing free at Disney, but you take an hour drive north and you can, visit Walt's grandparents. His maternal grandparents are buried about an hour north of Magic Kingdom. But yeah, so as a kid, he would vacation here with his Aunt Jessie, him and Roy, and his mother and father met in town. His father was a postman and mother was a school teacher. They met here. They met in town there about an hour north of what would become Walt Disney World. They got married there. They were actually the first. They were the first marriage on record, I think, in Lake County.
Wow.
And I think I should have given you guys a photo. I have a photo of the marriage license. I think it's in the book.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's early in the book there. And they lived in town for like a year, and they had their first child there, and then things didn't go so well, and Elias couldn't make it as a farmer, and deep freeze killed most of his crops, and he ended up packing it up and going off to Chicago, where Walt would eventually be born, where Walt and Roy were both born. Yeah,
and then I think this one's a good one to show. Sorry. that actually
Yes.
shows the.
So
Yeah, go ahead. Oops.
And just below the where the grandparents are buried cemetery, but Paisley and they called it Akron. Basically, they're now swallowed up by the forest, but they're ghost towns. But that's where they lived, and you could see in relation that it wasn't too far from Orlando or Kissimmee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that map's
very cool.
1890, which is not too far off from where from when the Disneys would have been living there.
Yeah, which is very neat.
Interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. So they got the land.
Yeah.
Yes. They got the land.
Now they have to do something with it.
Yeah.
They get the land, and Walt dies.
Tell us about
Yeah.
That's really sad. But tell us about how the news finally broke, because there was a lot of speculation around who was buying all this land, People thought it was Ford Motor Company and Boeing, right?
Boeing, Ford. It was in the newspaper every day, or at least several times a week. There was always a rumor mill going on, and Orlando Sentinel kept it, kept a good watch on things, because if somebody's coming in and spending, $5 million, almost 30,000 acres, I mean, that's, 1964, 65, like that. Wow, what's going on here? There's something major. Right. So they basically kept it quiet for as long as they could. As a lot of folks know, they use shell corporations to hide their identity. They paid cash for almost all the deals to not trace it back to. There we go. Yep. So those were some of the names. Latin American Development. I love the I-4 properties.
I-4. That was a great one.
It's great. Yeah. I love it. So they use these shell corporations to hide their identity, to keep prices down. And it was there's also like a little tidbit from Roy during all this that he needed to keep the prices down, and he needed to be responsible and fiscally sound to his shareholders, because if this didn't work out and he bought 30,000 acres of land, 27,000 some odd acres, he can't bankrupt the company. There's a lot at stake here. So it had to be a sound investment and not, a huge risk where they would have to answer to shareholders, or it could be detrimental to the company. So I always think that's interesting, because everybody's like, oh, they duped all these people into selling their land so much cheaper. And yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit, but the truth of the matter is, who was going to buy that land anyway?
Right.
I mean, it was cow pasture, swamp land, and they invested, tens of millions of dollars to make it usable before they even built a park. They had to do so much, drainage control and do, things with, water control. And it's remarkable what went on there. But yeah, so they get the land, and, they keep the identity for about, a year and a half, give or take. They're able to hold on to keeping it a secret. And then Orlando Sentinel, sort of pops the story that, it's Disney. They're coming. And, Walt comes down and gives a press conference, doesn't really say a lot, doesn't really give too much, too many concrete answers, or just that he's coming and he's building something great. And then the rumor mill sort of starts to churn again, because what's coming? Then, you hear all kinds of grandiose ideas and things like that. And unfortunately, then about, a year after it's announced, Walt passes away, and kind of things go into limbo again.
Yeah. He didn't really say in that press conference what he was planning.
He didn't really say much of anything. No.
And what he was planning was not what we actually got, right?
No. Yeah, I mean, he didn't say a ton. And that's always interesting, because people couldn't wait to hear him speak and what the plans were, and he gave very vague. There was going to be a park, but at this point in his plan or his agenda, it was going to be so much more. Like a theme park was going to be tertiary or secondary, or like an afterthought. It was going to lure people in, because really what he wanted to do was create sort of like a utopian or futuristic, or however you want to call it, community of Epcot, where it was green before green was even a thing. as Walt would say, the pedestrian's key, or there would be different levels. The cars would be underneath, and there'd be vast green spaces, and people could walk and then have a green belt. And if you didn't, work in the community, you weren't living in the community. It was a whole, big grandiose plan that doesn't come to fruition.
I think one of the funniest things in your book is when he was talking about the wedway that's going to take everybody to work.
Yeah.
And that there'll never be a line because there's always another car coming. And all I can think of is he never made it to Walt Disney World because it's an hour all the time.
Because the people mover has a huge line.
Yes. And
the time.
I feel like a hallmark, and that's one of my favorite things to do is I could sit on there, and when we do the loop, I actually say, "Can I go again?" And they say, "Yeah, sure." But invariably, do you ever ride it without it breaking down? I mean, almost always breaks down or stops or something, and it's part of the allure. But
it's like
it is funny to
I
see
always
that.
say it's a wheelchair.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see what Walt said about Epcot.
Check me out.
The most exciting, the most important part of our Florida project, in fact, the heart of everything we'll be doing in Disney World, will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow. We call it Epcot, spelled E-P-C-O-T, Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. Here it is in larger scale. Epcot will take its cue from the new ideas and new technologies that are now emerging from the creative centers of American industry. It will be a community of tomorrow that will never be completed, but will always be introducing and testing and demonstrating new materials and new systems.
I'm sorry, I failed to mention, I really need to, that this video and a lot of these pictures that we got did come courtesy of the Walt Disney Company on their press release site for our use. And the other pictures came from Aaron in his book. So thank you for that. So
You're welcome.
Let's don't forget Chris Futrell.
And Chris Futrell took pictures of those windows.
Yes.
This is Chris.
Yeah.
That's right.
And unfortunately on the videos, we can't talk while the videos are on.
Right.
So.
Which
probably the best part
which
of the show.
stinks for the construction videos because it's really good.
So
And
cool.
I'd love to hear Aaron talk about what we're looking at while we're looking at it. But we have some pictures, I guess. So where was the one where they were moving the land, or was that just all? That was all in the video. So
that's in the video,
yes.
yeah. I guess we'll look at the video and then we'll speak to it.
Yeah.
Gotta love the little add-in.
I know. And my favorite part is showing the lagoon with just empty.
Yeah.
It really helps you visualize though that the park is on the second story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So when they were doing core samples and they were drilling into the ground, the water table was, I mean, I don't remember exactly, but it's like 2 or 3 feet right there. They were not able to, they would not be able to build on or do what they wanted to do. So they basically, the lagoon is, they take all the earth from the lagoon and build up the site by about 14 feet, so that they're able to build on it. And that in turn makes, ground floor, the utilidors, the underground, the mystique of the, the underground Disney, is the first floor, and the Magic Kingdom is actually on the second floor. Most people don't know that, but if you're standing, like you said, if you stand far back, where you could see that, the elevation is different. So they built up the property by about 14 feet with all the fill from the Seven Seas Lagoon, and it gave structural support for basically everything they needed. Otherwise, it would have been too damp and too soft, and water was everywhere.
Yeah. And one of the things I thought was interesting, once they took up all of that fill, there was all that layer of sand, and that's the sand on the beaches for
the white
the
sand.
resorts.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what they find underneath all the muck and everything, which is pretty remarkable.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's beautiful sand.
Yeah.
I thought it was neat that Bay Lake was owned by 13 couples who just used it for their own pleasure.
Right?
Right.
Like,
I wanted friends like that.
Is this like Disney After Dark, or like, what were they, like swingers? What was going on over there?
Yeah.
13 families at I don't know. With that, but it was interesting that they said that, Robert Foster said initially he was thinking, we're not going to get this, because how can you get 13 couples to agree on anything? How can you get like 3 people to agree on anything?
Yeah.
Let alone, 26 people.
$250,000 make them agree.
In those year dollars.
Yeah, that's a lot of money back then.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a nice little weekend getaway with your friends, just to hang out and have a little island to yourself.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then in your book, when she is describing about how if you didn't realize that you were on the second floor when you go into Small World, when you go into Pinocchio's village house and look, you can see, that's the second floor looking down at the first floor right there. So
that's just like one of those things that you don't even realize, that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, look at that. They're actually a floor below me. They're beneath me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it, but you don't put it in
visually.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Make the connection.
Mm-hmm. So, then do we want to show some of the construction? Because those pictures.
Those pictures are really neat. Yeah, while they were building.
Very cool.
Yeah.
This is the castle, obviously.
Yeah, that's such a great picture.
It's just so weird to see it like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's so weird when you see things in a different perspective, that the other building right next to the castle, you don't realize is that close to the castle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be where
Like
Snow White used to be.
Where princess.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It is really weird when you go backstage, if you've ever taken a backstage tour, to see it from the other side, how close things really are to each other. How, Jungle Cruise is literally right next to, like right behind the Emporium almost. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Especially
when you do the
when
Keys to the
they open up.
Kingdom one. Yeah.
Yeah, when they open up and you walk, or even like when they do the Halloween, the evening Halloween things, when they open up and you walk like behind Main Street, and you realize like, oh wow, this is such a short little stretch here.
It's a really short
but it seems
walk.
so much longer when you walk around the back. Yeah.
Right.
Actually, that comes with, that's
That's just so good. I don't know. It's just so cool looking.
Wow.
So the Polynesian and the Contemporary, they were supposed to be owned by U.S. Steel. That's what.
Yes. Yeah. So U.S. Steel was, so Disney basically put out this. I don't want to say it was like a bid, but it was like a bit. They were teaming up with U.S. Steel to sort of do an innovative way to create a hotel. So they were building the actual hotel rooms on site, but off site. So it was on Disney property, but they would come in, they'd build the hotel room, and then basically slot it right into whatever building. So you see here with the Poly, you see where the rooms would go, where they would slide the rooms right in. And that was supposed to be an innovative way. The Polynesian, the original design was actually going to be like a high rise, more sort of like what we see with the Contemporary. But they ended up changing it. But again, like what you plan and what comes to fruition is always, especially with Disney, it's always two different things. So there were overruns, there were timing issues, and things became a little bit of a disaster having, U.S. Steel own the hotels, and Disney would operate and lease them. And it got to the point where Disney actually just bought them out and said, "We're going to do this ourselves. We want to take care of it ourselves." And that's sort of how, and then they had no real background or anything in the hotel business, because over in Disneyland, they didn't own the Disneyland Hotel.
Right.
That was a third party owned it and operated until like the 1980s, until Michael Eisner.
Yeah, they talk about that. The behind the attractions on Disney Plus right now talks about that. They talk about the Disneyland Hotel.
Yeah,
and the company that owned it.
Yeah.
Which in that picture you just had up, Tony, it actually shows the contemporary being built behind it as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I love that picture. I think that's a great picture.
Yeah.
Courtesy of Disney.
Right.
All of these are. So the Haunted Mansion.
It's just so cool.
Yeah. And again, that's small. That's probably it. Well, is that the actual ride built attraction? What's behind that white building behind it? Is that where the actual attraction lives?
Yeah.
So we don't really see that building now because of the stuff they've put around it. So we don't see it.
Yeah, and the exactly. And so if you look at like what's below the actual main quote unquote Haunted Mansion, so we're entering into that white building, that into like the concrete there, and going back into the show building. So that basically the whole thing on top is a facade of what you think you're going into, but we're really not going into that. Yeah.
Don't spoil the magic.
I know. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's not really haunted.
No.
We don't go through we don't go through the house. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good picture too. I mean, it's just the Main Street and under construction.
Because that's all the town square on the right side. Yep.
Yeah. It's remarkable to think about what they basically did in under 2 years. It's could you imagine? You can't they can't get a ride built in 2 years.
Really?
They get Space 220 open in 2 years.
Pandora. We all thought Pandora was never going to open. It was they announced it, and then
and not even COVID. Had nothing to do with COVID. They don't even. I mean, even in good times, you're not getting ride in 2 years.
Can you speak to that? In the book, they had a construction company that was working on the project, and Roy was not happy with their progress.
No. So I always love this story because you get a different side of Roy. So the company's name was JB Allen, and they actually did most of the work over at Disneyland as well. So they came over and they were the general contractor, and I think it was about 10 months, 11 months left to go in the project, and Roy wants an update as to what's going on. So he basically calls the folks in from JB Allen, and he calls his folks in, the Disney folks overseeing everything and working together. And they're at a meeting, and he basically says, are we going to be done by October 1? October 1 it's announced. We have a lot on the line. We have a lot of money on the line. Is it going to be done? And his Roy's guys all shook their head yes. They didn't know how it was going to get done. They didn't even think twice that they have to say yes. They figured by hook or by crook we're going to get it done. The JB Allen guys shake their head no and said no, it's not going to get done. And Roy went like bananas. He went crazy, slams his fist on the ground, and carries on that there's so much at stake, and this has to happen. And if you're telling me no, we have to get something done. And he leaves, storms out, leaves, and basically goes to the executives, the card walkers, and those guys, the early executives who sort of take over when Walt had passed. And said, that's it. We're done with JB Allen. We're going to go to the construction business, get rid of them, fire them, buy them out, and we're going to just move forward ourselves, do it ourselves. And that's when Lake Buena Vista Construction Company. You could still see permits today. A lot of still says Lake Buena Vista Construction. So that's how they got rid of their contractor about 10 months left on the project, and kind of just went ahead. Yeah, and which speaks to that time too, because now, or like 80s and 90s, they would do things themselves. They would try and design a ride themselves, and it would take them a really it took a long time to get Space Mountain together, because they weren't necessarily in the ride, but they were in the ride business, but they would contract out to Arrow or these other companies. So it speaks to people really living up to the legacy of there's a lot here for Roy, and there's the trust and the allegiance and loyalty to the man and the brand and the company and everything else. It was such a different time.
Yeah.
So, something that gets talked about all the time is how brilliant Walt was that he decided that we were going to have this municipality that made decisions and did it. But Walt didn't want to have a municipality, right?
No, he actually didn't. He was actually told by his name was Jules Stein, and he was the head over of Universal Studios over in LA. And Jules told him, no, you don't want the municipality. It's too much of a nightmare. It's too much of a headache. And everybody around Walt was like, no, we want the municipality. We want this. We want to be in control of our destiny. There's certain things we want to do that, that we want carte blanche to be able to do whatever we want to do. We don't really want to answer to anyone. A lot of the things we want to do, like they don't even have building codes for. So like, Osceola County at the time didn't have building codes for what Disney wanted to do. So in comes Paul Hellawell again, who, was so, important in buying the land, but he also helped write this legislature to basically give, say keys to the kingdom, basically gave Disney carte blanche to do whatever they want, basically. They basically can do and control everything with the exception of a police force, which was by their own doing. They didn't want to have that responsibility. But they, fire, EMS, water, you name it. They basically do it all, soup to nuts. And Paul Hellawell drafted the almost 500 pages of legislature and took it to the state and said, here's what we want to do. Let's put it up for vote. And, there's quotes at the time of like, if, the legislatures would say, if I would vote no against this, it's like voting no for apple pie. Like who doesn't love apple pie, who doesn't love Disney, and who's going to say, right, no, we don't want them here. They were, even if they didn't think the deal was a good deal for the state, or if they had reservations, everybody was afraid to say anything because they didn't want Disney to say goodbye. We're not going to do it. And not that the Disney changed Central Florida, it changed the entire state.
Absolutely.
Right. And that became Reedy Creek as the municipality, right?
Yes, Reedy Creek is the municipality. Yeah.
So then this is kind of the Reedy Creek
so this
district.
shows the overall district, which is basically two towns, the city of Bay Lake and the city of Lake Buena Vista.
And people live in those cities.
Yes, a handful of people live in those cities. Yeah. They're either current cast members or retired cast members. They rent a parcel of land, and they basically have I want to say like a mobile home, or not a mobile home, but like a trailer home or something like that, semi-permanent on the land. And they make basically they're the decision makers, so they'll vote on referendums and budgets and things like that. It's a company town, but yeah.
Where does Golden Oak fit into that?
So that's interesting. I basically said that I asked Reedy Creek that, and when I was putting this book together. So Golden Oak has been annexed out to Orange County. So it's technically, so the way the legislation was crafted, it's crafted so whoever owns the most land in the district basically calls all the shots, which I think we have a slide there that shows Disney is like obviously the biggest landowner, or Reedy Creek is in control. So the Walt Disney Company owns 70% of the land. So they, with the way the legislation was drafted, with ownership comes voting rights. So if you sit on the board, if you're like a superintendent of the district, Disney will give you'll purchase 5 or 7 acres. So it's that others part of the 109.5 acres. So Disney sells you a handful of acres, and you now have voting rights, and you're going to basically vote the way Disney wants you to vote, because it's basically the gig. And then when your term is up, you sell the land back to Disney. So that's how they get. So ownership gives voting rights, but that would be a problem with Golden Oak, because then you'd have ownership. You should have voting rights then over the industrial district, and they annex that portion out to Orange County. So you're technically, you do live, on Walt Disney property, but it's not within that. You don't have, it's not, it is technically in Reedy Creek, but it abides by everything with Orange County.
Yeah, cool. That's interesting.
I didn't see
which is one of the early issues when they wanted to have folks living on property. Like in the 70s, they started to build townhomes, like by Disney. Disney Springs now, you could buy and rent places, but then they basically ran into the problem. Like, oh wait, these folks who own are going to want to have a say into the property, so we actually can't have that.
Right.
So my little 4 square inches at the closet at Saratoga isn't getting me any voting rights, huh?
No, unfortunately. Maybe I'll get you a cupcake. I don't even think I'll get you a cupcake.
No, it doesn't.
Get you anything.
No, it doesn't.
No.
I apologize. I missed this picture of the shell corporations when we were talking about them.
Yes.
So those are
Yeah, these are the original. So this is the original names. These are the original names of who bought what. So I-4 bought that parcel by I-4, which is where you would see Bonnet Creek over that way. The Tomahawk Properties, Reedy Creek Ranch. Yeah.
There was some disagreement when they were building. I remember because Walt wanted the park in the rear of the property, so people would have to drive through to see everything else to get there.
Yeah, I mean, like, what didn't he think of? It's kind of crazy to think of. That was his whole weenie aspect of let's call the castle the weenie to lure people in. So let's build the park in the back, because the reality of it is most people are coming for the park. They're not coming to see what Epcot is.
Right.
I mean, maybe they will, but we got to get them down here. So the lure was Magic Kingdom would be at the back of the park, and that's basically what Roy stuck with, because at one point when they started to break ground and develop, they wanted to the accountants and the money guys were like, let's put it in the front. It'd be less to develop, less blah 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 blah. It'd be cheaper.
The roadways and all that.
Let's just sticking with the original plan. Let's do it the right way, or at least the way Walt wanted it.
Right.
Even just having the parking lot where it is and having to take a boat or a monorail to get there, and that anticipation and getting there.
It's just brilliant. Yeah. It's special. Yep.
So October 1st, 1971 came. And
it came, and it was kind of uneventful in some respects, the way they wanted it. They didn't want it to be out of control. I think they had 9,000 or 10,000 people. It was way under what the media expected more, but it wasn't out of control. They wanted it. They were working up until the park opened. So they were really like cutting it down to the wire, and it opened, and people were happy with what they saw, obviously. And by Thanksgiving, a month and a half later, they set their first attendance record, and then in December, unfortunately Roy then passes away, and the last cornerstone of the company, so to speak, from the beginning is gone, and a new chapter begins, I guess.
Yeah.
Or one closes. Yeah.
If Roy hadn't stepped up after Walt died,
Roy wanted to retire.
Yeah,
he wanted to retire, but he basically wanted to see this through. Wanted to see his brother's dream, and I think ultimately at some point it became his own dream, because he wanted to fulfill the dream of what his brother. But yeah, I think it's one of those things when you think about it. So he passes away about 2 months after the park opens. He basically had a stroke and died, and it's one of those things where you wonder where that had the whole thing had to have taken an enormous toll on him physically. That maybe that sort of does him in some respects, and he saw it done, and he did what he had to do, and that was it. And he goes on, he passes on. But yeah, I mean, you imagine. They're buying land in Florida to make this huge project, and Roy's and Walt's in his 60s and Roy's in his 70s. I mean,
right?
It's kind of crazy. I mean, people buy land in Florida in 60s or 70s, but they're going to retire.
Right?
They're not going to. Yeah,
not going to develop it.
They had the location right, and the age right, but they're not they're not the plan. Yeah.
No.
Let's see opening day in Roy's words.
Walt Disney World is a tribute to the philosophy and the life of Walter Elias Disney, and to the talents, the dedication, and the loyalty of the entire Disney organization that made Walt Disney's dream come true. May Walt Disney World bring joy and inspiration and new knowledge to all who come to this happy place. a magic kingdom where the young at heart of all ages can laugh and play and learn together. Dedicated this 25th day of October, 1971.
And that traffic is not any different now.
50 years of I-4 looking just like that.
Yep. You know, it's interesting. So in July, I went to Marceline, their hometown, and I went to go see the farm and the museum there, and it gives you such a different perspective on. It's just, I mean, anybody who's a fan of Disney and you pay attention, or even if you're, not even a huge fan, it's still pretty remarkable what these guys did or what Walt did and what they created. If you just look at the big picture and not look at the details, just okay, that's pretty interesting. But to actually be in the town in Marceline, Missouri, there's nothing in Marceline, Missouri now. So there was really nothing there in 1904 or 5. To think about how somebody goes from there to LA just from basically the start to finish, from Walton, Missouri to Walt in Hollywood. It's just like these things, like he created so many of these things, like it didn't exist. Like people say, oh, it's a no-brainer to do a theme park. There was no no-brainer. Like there wasn't, I mean, they came from his mind. So it's just really crazy to see the evolution of things and how they really did what they did coming from where they came from. I mean, there's nothing there now. There's nothing for an hour and a half around there, let alone to, all right, we're going to set out and we're going to go to, Hollywood and, change the entertainment industry and shape a lot of the culture in the, modern world. Okay. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And to see it, firsthand at Walt Disney World, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty special.
Yes, it is.
That's why my heart goes flutter every time I get there.
Yeah. It's hard not to, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I picked up on this too. So the dedication was October 25th.
Yeah. So they wanted a soft opening for October, for the first few weeks. They wanted the soft opening. They wanted to, finish up. When Disneyland opened, it was a catastrophe. They were overrun with people. The park, they didn't have water, or they was just, everything was a disaster. So they didn't want to go down that road again. So they did this basically. It's like when a restaurant opens now. So sometimes they have a soft opening for a few days, and then they do it was the same kind of thing. They wanted to, open up the park, have people come, and then they basically did it as a weekend. And they also filmed, you could watch it on TV, so it was beamed into every house in America. But yeah, it was basically a build up to let's get everything on the up and up before we show it to the world.
Yeah, right.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you're going to be there for the anniversary, Aaron?
I will be, of course. Yeah, I will be there. I'll be there for a few days. Any excuse to go visit, Disney is a good one for me. Yeah.
Dude, you'll love the Remy ride.
Yeah.
I watched it on YouTube, obviously, a bunch of times. And, it was one of those things I was like, I'm not sure. I'm sure. I enjoy just about everything. But I was like, I'll hold my reservations till I get there. But, yeah, I'm sure it was like the, when I watched the YouTube of I'm totally drawing a blank now, Mickey and Minnie's in Hollywood Studios.
Right away.
Yeah. When I watched it on YouTube, I was like, I don't know. I'm sure
it's much cooler when you're on.
Wow, this is awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm still bitter about the France Pavilion. I loved the movie. I loved to go see the movie. But I probably, was the only person that really enjoyed that movie. And now there's like a meet and greet or, whatever it is,
Be our guest.
Yeah. So I'm a little bitter.
Well, we actually saw the movie, I don't know when, July. We saw it right before we went to see it, Epcot Forever. It is so dated.
It is so dated.
With the ladies with
God.
the hats. I love the ladies with the hats.
Okay, my favorite.
I like the guy riding his bike with a button-down shirt that's like, to his navel with the big gold chain. It was.
They were Imagineers.
I like the leisure suits.
The people on the bikes that are driving, and they were Imagineers. They worked on the film.
No way.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the leisure suits and the tiny little steal French cars were just really funny.
Yep. I love the music. I think it's more the music than the actual
The
film.
music is
The
amazing.
music is intense, and I just but it takes it's so many other things with Disney. It's nostalgia that takes you back to some other time in your head of when you're a kid or
Everybody probably knows this except for me, but that song, the music is like so omnipresent now, it seems like.
Yeah.
So I Shazammed it while we were in there watching it because I was like, all right, this is some like famous song, right? You know what the name of it is? Impressions de France.
It's like 2 Christmases ago, maybe 3 Christmases ago. They were playing that on a US mail commercial for around Christmas. They were playing some of that music. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 years ago. Yeah.
But that's the song is Impressions de France.
It deserves that name. I mean, come on, that's awesome.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Uli had another question that Aaron might know because none of the rest. Was Lillian involved in the opening, or was she still alive? Or
she was still alive. I don't think she. I think I'm not sure if she was there or not. She was still alive. She remarried rather quickly.
Really?
After Walt passed.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm trying to. I can't.
That seems like a big shoes to fill.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And it's interesting because you can't find much information on the guy she married. I've tried for years and years and years and years.
Cool boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Banana boy.
Yeah. Crazy.
Wow, that's interesting.
I don't know if they. I don't know if I would imagine she probably was there in some capacity because around that time, Ron Miller, who was Walt's son-in-law, was front and center at the company. He would go on to be president of the company and lead the company into the 80s. So I got to think that she was probably there, but I don't remember seeing any pictures of her.
Right.
Yeah, but they were still very much involved. It wasn't until like the 1980s, mid to late 80s, that they actually started to divest from the company and kind of go the other way. I think 86, 87, they basically sold Walt's name back to the company for X amount of dollars. And the train and the monorail and everything at Disneyland went back to the company for, I don't know, $60 or $70 million.
Wow. So
Must be nice.
I thought this was cool, this photo of all of the people involved with making it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always need to see a face when I'm telling a story or reading a story. You sort of create a picture in your mind of what somebody looks like. And I think most of these guys sort of look like the way I thought they would. Howell, definitely not when you hear about his past of, being a CIA guy, but he was obviously up there in years.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, General Potter looks like a general. I mean, he's got that.
Oh, yeah.
stoic look.
Right.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For some reason, Foster, I just imagined him just, fixing his tie, walking around, just being Mr. Cool Dude. I don't know.
Yeah, he was young too. I mean, he was a young guy at that time. I think he was in his 30s.
I mean, comparatively with the rest of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks really young. Yeah.
Yeah. He's still around.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still alive. He's still around. Yep.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I thought it was interesting how things don't change with politicians. The governor tried to, at the last minute, tried to say, "See what I did? I brought Disney here."
I was
He
involved
had
from
nothing
day one.
to do with it.
Yeah.
He had nothing to do with it, but he tried to make it a campaign thing.
You got to glom on to whatever, and it didn't even work. He didn't get the re-election.
Yeah,
And
he lost.
the other story that's in there is, I think, is pretty funny, is when Disney hired folks to basically explain to the legislature, to the state reps of, all right, here's what we're doing, here's what's going on. They really kind of weren't that interested. They basically, I think the head of the state reps, I guess they brought somebody in and his name escapes me, but he basically was like, as they're explaining the package, he goes, "Wait a minute, is this good for Florida?" And he goes, "Yeah." Well, you're asking the guy who was pitching it, so he's not going to say no. So is this good for Florida? And he goes, "Yeah, we think it's really good for Florida." That's all I need to hear. Thanks. And then
I can tell you what his last name was.
Can you?
It was Pope.
Pope. Was it Verl Pope?
Apparently, yeah. Because we were talking about, I was listening to the book and I got kind of involved and it was still playing. And there's a line in your book where it says he talked to or discussed it, whatever, with the powerful Pope. And all of a sudden I'm like, why is he talking to the Pope about Florida? What is going on here?
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
very lost, but yeah, I had to
Yeah.
go back on that one.
Yeah.
But
Earl
Pope
Pope,
was
yeah.
his name. There
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah. Was it good for Florida? We think so. Okay, good. That's all I need
Okay,
to hear.
good. Good.
Yeah.
That's good for me. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, we need more guys like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Instead
Yep.
of trying to be bureaucracy and blah.
Yep.
But
So that's
So,
that basically,
Yeah.
and that's the 60-minute version of Buying Disney's World.
yeah, right. It's a much more interesting book.
Edited.
Yes, it really
Yes.
is.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
And it's
you.
Yeah.
quick. I think it's, I don't know, 4.5 hours or something.
Yeah, but the
It's
granular
100
aspects of
I
those
think it's
are really cool.
186 pages, give or take, if
Yeah.
you're reading. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a quick read.
Mhm.
So, but a lot of really cool information.
Oh yeah, very much so. She
Yeah, I
went
think
into
I
a
got
lot
some
of depth
details
about the
in there.
family and everything, which is very cool.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think I felt like going into it, I wanted to sort of, complete the story, like the general vague stories out there. Oh, they shell corporations bought the land, blah, blah, blah. But there were so many details and hurdles and, a lot of minutia that sort of got overlooked that I felt like would tell the complete story. And I sort of, and basically, how we got to Florida, that needed to be told too. Like, how did Walt decide to even do any of this? So we had to go back to Disneyland and and the
And
bowling
sometimes
alley,
it's-
which I think is,
yeah.
it's such a random project that they
Right.
opened a bowling alley in Denver and,
Mhm.
before they opened Walt Disney World.
You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of a cliche, but it's amazing to me how many little old ladies there were that owned property that didn't want to sell it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
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 like half your stories are like, and she didn't want to,
And
she said no,
Yeah.
and she chased him out with a broom, and
yeah.
Yeah, that lady was the best. Yeah, we're the older sisters who wouldn't speak of where they got the land from, and they it was ill-gotten land because their father won a parcel of land which became Fort Wilderness in a poker game. So they didn't want to speak that he got it in a poker game, but the brother, their brother told Robert Foster,
Yeah.
oh yeah, he won this in a high stakes poker game in Texas. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. Thanks, Dan. You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome.
It was very good. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Let me put this back up
Well-
one more time. This is the book,
Yep.
Aaron's book, Buying Disney's World, the story of how Florida swampland became Walt Disney World.
Yes.
And it's got a lot
Yes.
of really cool pictures in it.
Mhm.
And, you know,
Absolutely.
I've read or listened to it, I think 3 times now. So there's
Wow.
Awesome.
always something there you'll pick back up.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me on. I had a great time.
Yeah,
As
absolutely.
always.
You're
We,
welcome.
we always have a good
And,
chat when we talk.
And we'll
Yes.
have to get
Need a-
together next week.
Yes. I can't believe
Yeah,
it's next week already.
absolutely.
We'll have a
Yeah.
Dole Whip and a box of
Go-
popcorn or something.
Yeah.
Go to
I gotta
Casey's
get the
Corner
new
and get some
bucket.
hot dogs.
Yeah.
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 I'm game. Whatever you guys want, you just tell me. I'm there. We'll
Okay.
See,
have to
you can
wait,
tell the Disney fans.
Yeah.
wait through the sea of people.
You saw
Yes,
2 hidden
and
Mickeys on the cover?
Yep.
There's
Yeah.
Oh.
2. I
Good
see
eye.
them.
Yep.
I
Yep,
saw
they
them
were
right
intentional.
away.
Neat.
That's so funny.
That I have literally nothing to do with this cover other than I said, here's the title, and my graphic design guy, his name's Rob Yeo, Yeo. He's just amazing. And I told him what I wanted. I said, I need a cover. This is what we're doing. I gave him, a little bit of background into the book. I think he read the little back cover, and he
Mhm.
totally captured. That's basically, what Walt's pointing at in that film that we showed earlier.
Yeah.
That's basically the Florida map. And yep. Yeah. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
you
It's
nailed it,
going to
buddy.
go
That's
right
it.
there.
Right
Yep.
there.
With 2 hidden Mickeys.
That's
Yep.
funny.
So yeah, and Uli thinks that you should narrate your next book.
Oh, thank you. I think my voice is terrible, but I hate listening. I never listen to myself or watch myself or any of those things. And I hear my very thick, like Philadelphia, South Jersey accent that's, I think at one point I said water. So I'm thinking, I say water and everybody hears a WOODER, water.
It's all right. I don't listen to myself either. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
okay.
not, I can't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for having me on. And
Aaron, thanks
see
for
you
coming.
Thank you very much
see
for
you
coming
in,
on.
I guess,
you.
Not even 10 days, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
We'll be there the 30th.
Yeah.
I think all of us will
Okay.
be there the 30th.
Mhm.
Awesome.
So
All right.
Yes.
we will hook up.
Yes.
We'll try and crash Club 33.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Maybe a famous author
Crash
has some
Club
pull.
33. That one just slipped in there. I got no pull. Zero. I think you guys would have more.
Oh, but
They would
you know
probably
what?
turn
We'll
me away
have
just
Dave
for
for
who
the
I
Disney
am.
Crush podcast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I don't think so. I don't think we have any pull either.
Yeah. I think we're all gonna be sitting at the Polynesian. That's probably
Yeah.
about it.
There we go.
That's okay.
I'm
Hey.
okay
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that.
No complaints.
Yeah.
I agree.
Works for
I agree.
me.
Yep.
Yep.
Timber Lounge, I'm good.
Steakhouse
Yeah.
71 Lounge.
Mhm.
I'll take the cheeseburger from Kona.
Oh,
That's like my favorite meal there. That's such a good burger there. But yeah. Well,
All
again,
right, so-
thank you guys for having me on. Thanks for listening
Thank
to me
you very
talk for an
much.
hour. And
Thank you for
everybody
doing this.
enjoy the 50th and
Yeah, you too.
Yes.
long live the Vacation Kingdom.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So,
So,
Yeah.
and
God.
then we'll be on again next week.
next week
Oh,
we're
that's
going to do next week the Disney Crush podcast with special guest Mickey File and Steve Sanders from
Oh.
Monorail Tales. We're going to talk about 50 years, decade
That's a
by
lot.
decade.
Lots
Decade
to
by
cover there
decade.
too.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's awesome. You're getting
10
it from
minutes a
soup to
decade.
nuts,
Go.
Yeah.
from conception to construction to there we go. Yeah.
That's why we had you on this week, because there was so much with the conception and the construction that we
Mhm.
couldn't
The-
possibly
the
do all of
2000s.
it. So
Yeah.
For
It's
Epcot,
impossible.
but yeah.
mhm.
Be a 3-hour episode.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well,
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, next week. Hey,
Yeah.
thank you.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
and
I'll
we'll-
be in touch.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
we'll,
Take care.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So that was fantastic having him on.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
all right. So,
Are we all good? We've announced what we're doing next week and all that, right?
Yeah. So
Thanks.
let's just say good night to everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's say
Good night,
to everybody.
Thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you again next
Bye.
week.
Bye.
Bye.